All right, we're back here on the big show. Well, we can't say that. A show of magnificent magnitude. Jim, let's talk about a big event that just took place. Newark, New Jersey, the Prudential Center. AEW Full Gear 2025. Quite a night. Quite a night. And let's talk about this night.
Well, Uncle Tony, as we've been mentioning, has seemed to have been stuck in a time warp or a loop, or just he's hit the wall. He can't go any further. He's going, but it is what it is and what it will be, brother. They got 10,000 people. They haven't done that in quite a while. It is the biggest metropolitan area in the country. What is it, Brian, up there now? About 15 million?
Something like that.
Or has Los Angeles surpassed you?
No, I think New York is still the biggest city. Oh. Is that the best they've ever done in the New York area without MJF?
I haven't kept track of that specific statistic. But at the same point, now, speaking of without MJF, please don't come back. Please don't come back. What in the world would poor MJF have to suffer through now? But nevertheless, they did a pre-show, as they usually do. What do they call it now? The tailgate brawl or whatever. And I did not. Well, go ahead.
They did two pre-shows because they had 0 Hour, which was on Amazon.
Yes.
And then the tailgate show, which was on TNT in place of an early start Collision, I guess.
Well, yes, because that's what they're doing is they for whatever reason, they can't show the TNT pre-show on Amazon. So they do a canned pre-show for Amazon, which is how I watch it. And we could watch it on TNT if we wanted to, but why the fuck would you want to? Because we are about to tell you what they put on the pre-show. And then you can determine for yourself if it was worth another hour of your time when the pay-per-view itself was going to go almost 4.5 hours.
That 0 Hour is rough. It's like the worst. It's like if someone did Grammy coverage but couldn't get anywhere near the red carpet. It's like Jeff Jarrett in a bedazzled outfit with Renee, who like this is her prom, and RJ, who's happy to be on camera, and just a rotating group of weirdos. It's the worst pre-show. It's such a bad pre-show, but I think that's why I would have chosen the matches, and that's why I did. I ended up going to TNT to see the end of the pre-show, although some may say the beginning of the main show.
The beginning of the main, it's seamless now. Actually, there's seams all over it. It's stitched together like a ransom note. But I was going to say the good thing about the 0 hours, you didn't have to see the matches. So they have a match later on in the actual main show where the winners get $1 million, Brian. So naturally on the pre-show, they have a match, a 4-way where the winners get $200,000. Was there a need to put up $200,000? Which one of these yahoos has gone broke and in storyline needs them, or just...
Yeah, how did that work? It got introduced as a storyline thing, and now it's just random matches or for large sums of money.
Yes, when never before have those sums been mentioned, but now that's why I'm saying Tony's stuck. It's just... But again, why would any of these motherfuckers be competing for $200,000? Max Caster and Anthony Bowens, who were the hottest team in the company until they split them up and did all the things they did. And we've only assumed that Caster just has heat with everybody and they're just punishing him. Now they're back together on a pre-show against Austin Gunn and Poor Juice Robinson, who won the thing, against Big Bill and Brian Keith against the Outriggers. $200,000. But again, it's redundancy repeated redundantly. that you're having a match for a large amount of money when later on you're having a match for a large amount of money. And it had nothing to do with this. And then, Brian, where is the massive publicity, the mainstream cut-ins, the social media bombardment, the incredible coverage of the crossover celebrity now of Big Boom AJ and his big budgie fellow child, that is that he should be on these pay-per-view pre-shows? Or are they just doing it because he's a nice guy and they like seeing the fat kid do wrestling moves?
Well, let's be nice to the children involved in this. And of course, I believe he's from New Jersey, so there's a tie in there. If you're from New Jersey, usually you don't want to go to Newark. But he apparently went to Newark on this night. And again, they have a gimmick. They have a shtick they do on TikTok. My kids knew who they were. It didn't cause them to watch the wrestling show, but they knew who they were. But that was also a while ago. I mean, they've been doing this. It's not a fresh thing. It's kind of become a pre-show regular thing or semi-regular thing for, is it 2 years now? A year and a half?
And okay, so Big Boom AJ is an adult, has trained to be a pro wrestler in the past. That's why they did this to begin with. Okay, then. But the children, I'm not even talking about the small one, but they've got the teenage portly child rolling in doing wrestling moves. But the team is Boom and Doom, Big Boom AJ and QT Marshall, because AJ's name is Big Boom and QT Marshall's career is doomed, I guess. I don't know what. Why is that Boom and Doom?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
If you associate with QT Marshall, you are doomed. It's like a gypsy curse. So they beat Rocky Romero and Trent. And then Hook and Eddie Kingston apparently beat Anthony Henry and J.D. Drake. So you can put that result down on Cage Match or whatever. And then they have the 6-man tag. It was Mystico, Mascara Dorada, and Neon against, it was supposed to be Don Callis's family, Chia, and Take a Shit and Oh Boring. But they do a deal where it starts on the pre-show, but Okada's not there yet. He hadn't showed up. And then right before they start the pay-per-view, Okada, this dipshit, shows up on a screen coming up in his car and gets out already dressed. And they're already having the match. So when the pay-per-view comes on the air, they blow off pyro and Sockface is screaming, "It's a Saturday and you know what that means." And there's a sloppy 4-way going on in the ring already where one guy is hurt and couldn't start the match and the other one didn't show up. But then Okada's music plays. He walks boring. He comes to the ring and you're just, well, look at this fucking guy. He could stand in a subway at 5 o'clock on a Friday in Tokyo and nobody would goddamn even bother to not bump into him. And so he comes in and the match comes to a stop while he and Take stare at each other. And there's old Hichichichia trying to make peace between them because, and he's being stagey. And Okada gives Take the finger. And then they suddenly start the match again and everybody starts flipping. But then they all got on the top rope and everything came to a halt because Mystico. Did you see that where they're trying to set up for double superplexes on the turnbuckles and they're up there and they're fucking stalling and they're struggling. And then finally, especially Take a Shit just jumped down and you can see on his face, he's like, well, fuck this. And then Mystico comes out. And he supposedly had been hurt beforehand and couldn't join in the match. So then they all started at 100 miles an hour again. And you couldn't tell who was on offense or defense. And then at one point, did you see where Mystico got an armbar on Take-A-Shit and Okada saved it? And then he started hitting Take, his own guy, with the fake kitty shots to the back and picked him up and shit canned him out of the ring. But he's not supposed to know that Okada just did that? What the fuck is the matter with these people? That wasn't rhetorical.
Which people specifically? The fans there or the wrestlers in the match?
How can you, just as a professional wrestler, say, okay, somebody is going to jump on my back and hit me a few times and then pick me up and throw me out of the ring? It's my own partner, but I'm so stupid I can't figure it out. But wait, there's more. Then it was a 3-on-2 6-man, but only 2 guys were ever in sight at one time. Then Take-A-Shit got back in and started working with O'Boring moments after he hit and shit canned him. But then they argued. Then O'Boring accidentally clotheslined Take-A-Shit, and then they all just left the ring, and the 3 masked guys did all kinds of flips. And out of nowhere, Mystico armbarred Chichilla and beat him. And I just wrote scrambled eggs. That was the term that used to be used for a match that just went completely to pieces. Scrambled eggs. And they're milking this big confrontation that's eventually going to happen between Take and Okada, where Okada puts half-ass effort into everything and bores us out of the building. And Take-A-Shit is portrayed as being a shithead, just stupid, and just takes it with not even a goddamn... He bends his head over like, oh, I've broken up with my girlfriend.
This was one of my favorite things on the show.
Oh.
This, I think, was one of the best things on the show. I laughed throughout this whole thing. When the fireworks and the pyro went off, just in the middle of the match, it was so fucking funny. It was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. And there were some fans that are like, yeah, the pay-per-view, the same match that was just happening is still happening. That was funny. Mystico's music.
Oh.
I've fallen in love with the ridiculousness of him coming out to an American crowd who don't know this thing or don't care about it and playing up to that music. I find that so entertaining. Takeshita and Okada. It's like they become mute. They just like walk close to each other and they can't say anything. They just kind of look at each other, sometimes point, and then you get a middle finger.
Is it telepathy? Is it they're on a higher intellectual plane and they're sending all these vicious messages to each other through telepathy, just with mind force?
Inoki was going to say something and he stopped. God damn it.
That's more than they said. And that's the thing. They don't even...
Tiger Bomb.
Thank you, Tiger Bomb. They don't even move their lips. It's like they're just pantomimous.
And it's happened a few times. If it was like one time, you're like, okay, for whatever reason, they think this is how you build to a big moment. It's several times where one does something, the other one stands up, they walk close to each other, and then they just look at each other like Larry David eyeing someone on Curb Your Enthusiasm.
And if one of them's holding a belt, they hold that up.
This whole thing was so ridiculous. Hechicero playing the Peacemaker. So now you see like one of the heels like showing you that he's a good guy and he wants everyone to get along.
Can't we all just be friends?
Neon, or they pronounce it a different way, like Neon or whatever the hell they said. This whole thing, I love this. This is one of my favorite things on the whole show just because I was entertained by... When I saw that they were still like doing the ring introductions and I look at the time, I'm like, they did this last pay-per-view, I think with FTR.
Well, it was such a raging success, with old Hong Kong Phooey and his childhood friend. They're going to do it all the time.
So now there's not even just an overrun. Now there's a pre-run. Now you don't even know when the pay-per-view is going to start. You don't know when it's going to end. Now you don't know when it's going to begin. You just have to like have your whole life on standby. Just in case.
I double dog dare Tony Khan, as Tony, as they used to say when I was a kid, you don't have a hair on your balls. If you do not do this, I want you to redo the old Blackjack Mulligan, Kevin Sullivan thing where they had a wild double juice fight in Orlando at the Eddie Graham Sports Stadium, and they fought out the back door into the parking lot and into the adjoining dark fucking swamp or field or whatever was back there.
It was real dark, yeah.
And the fans never saw him again. And the next week, the bell rings for the first match. The guys go about 5 minutes, and in the front door comes Mulligan and fucking Sullivan, looking the same as they did the previous week. They fought all the way around the state and came back in the front door. Tony don't have a hair on his balls if he doesn't do that.
As I said, I thought that was one of the highlights of just the craziness of it. The pyro going off in the middle of the match, just giant pyro. And just the fans don't know how to react because they're watching this fucking match.
They're thinking, they might be thinking there's some kind of goddamn incident happening here. Wait a minute, are we getting an alert on our phones? There seem to be explosives in the area. It's not a professional show in terms of they want to think so far outside the box that they've lost track of what was supposed to be in the box to begin with. And they do things because they can, as I've said before, but not in a while. Just because you can cut your own ear off doesn't mean you're Van Gogh. But that may be a good segue to the second match, Brian. Cut your own ear off and thinking you're Van Gogh. We got Darby Allin. Darby Allin and Pac. Do you know this match was probably, for 10 minutes or so, the only thing that I saw all night in this program that really exhibited some kind of professionalism. The rest of it was a mess, but Darby Allin and Pac can work. They did wrestling. It was crisp. It was quick. It wasn't rushed, and it wasn't goddamn ludicrous gymnastics, arm drags, counters, mat wrestling, go-behinds, headlock takeovers. Their shit looked good. They can do it. And then Pac gave Darby Allin a full extended press slam off the apron, flat of his back on the fucking floor for a heat spot.
Yeah. Let's stop right there if you don't mind.
Please. I wish they would have.
What an angle that could have been. Just the guy picking up a guy and throwing him like that. I never saw anything like that as a wrestling fan growing up. If someone did that and then you made it like a big hospitalization thing, because why wouldn't you? That's amazing. They did that, and this match just kept going, and that's kind of the tale of the entire night.
It kept going. And again, yes, that's the thing where the heel would, well, again, that was an angle. People can look it up on YouTube. In Memphis, Joe LeDuc put Jerry Lawler over his head and fucking pitched him over the top rope. And Lawler's idea was to go 10 feet and land in kind of a splash position on that big oak ringside table. And the problem was LeDuc only got him 9 feet. He hit the edge of that table, took a bump onto the concrete floor off of that, and tore a muscle in his thigh. I believe it was out for 3 weeks. So whatever the fuck. But this was just again, you would do that to a baby face, and you would call the goddamn ambulance, and you'd put him on a backboard, you'd take him out, and he would want to get even. Or they could continue the match. And then Darby beat the count at 8, and then he was all taped up from where he'd been set on fire a week and a half ago. And he really did have burns because Pac rips all his tape off and show, I mean, it wasn't like he was goddamn disfigured, but he had, he's more on fire than I want to be. And he worked on the burns, and then he shot Darby off, and Darby took a flying bump through the turnbuckle through the buckles to the floor. And it was amazing. I mean, it made Ray Stevens look earthbound. And I wrote, oh my God, what a great bump for a count out loss. And they kept going. If you had done that, again, that bump, save it. Like I told Jericho that time, it bump over the top, head first to the post or whatever. Save it for the big show when you need it and do it, or the angle or whatever. Then Darby was back doing missile drop kicks off the top rope and to the floor, where he took a worse bump than Pac did. And then Pac gives Darby a German suplex into the corner on his head, and Darby just jumps up and clotheslines Pac, and then they both sell forever. How can you be thrown on your fucking head? And then it slowed down because they were getting more heat on Darby, and badly. It lost momentum. I wrote, why don't they go home? Because they apparently got a set time they've got to fill, and they ran out of tricks. And then Pac misses a splash off the top rope. Darby gets a scorpion deathlock. Here comes Wheeler Useless. And he jumped he got in the ring in front of the referee. And Darby went over, put his hands on it. The referee didn't disqualify it. He's just like, oh, don't do that. And while the referee's telling Wheeler to get out, Pac got Darby's Sting Memorial black baseball bat and hit him in the head with it and covered him 1, 2, 3. So at least the baseball bat worked. But he had to hit him. Brian, you always used to swing at balls in the playground like that, where you hold both ends of the bat and cover it with your hand. That kind of awkward swing.
Maybe if I'm playing pool drunk.
But that's usually why you don't hit most people with bats in the head, because you can't work it. But nevertheless, it was a good match by AEW standards. Darby wasted a couple of great bumps that, as we mentioned, could have been maximized to make something. But still, there wasn't furniture. These guys are athletic. So by these standards, good match, rotten finish. And the note that every time Darby's matches start to get over with me, he does something in it to remind me that he's in a real life a fucking moron. But it wasn't going to get any better than this. I don't know. What did you think?
I mean, I got to the point where, and it's happening all the time with his matches, and it ended up happening a lot on this show in general. I kind of don't want to see Darby do everything he can to almost die. And, the press slam spot, that should have been it. And if it wasn't going to be it, you should have saved it for the end, because it looked incredible.
But fortunately, now we know it didn't hurt him at all, because he was up doing shit minutes later.
And the biggest problem overall, beyond anything else, with Death Rider's matches are guaranteed interference. And it happened here again. And I feel like you get a collective groan when it happens. It's the opening match, technically, of the pay-per-view. And it's with Darby. You got to figure there'll be something, but I feel like that kind of felt deflating here.
Well, and they, for whatever reason, they want to beat Darby with Pac, which I don't see, be honest with you. Darby's still has that appeal. So they had to give him an out, but it wasn't enough that the goddamn guy used a baseball bat. The other guy had to come out and because they can't figure out another way to distract a referee, or it doesn't. This is Tony's thing. We're going to start with the match for a couple $100,000. Then we're going to have a fucking TikTok celebrity. Then we're going to have a match with blow off pyro in the middle of it with a 6-man tag with people joining in the middle. Then we're going to have a single match where somebody runs out and somebody gets hit with a ball bat and nearly hospitalized on several occasions. And then let's follow that with a 4-way women's tag team match where the winning team will be able to pick the stipulation for the semifinal match in the women's tag team championship tournament. Am I making that up, Brian?
Stipulations. We got them all here at AEW.
Get your stipulation. Get away from me, kid. You bother me. So this was Marina Schaefer and Megan Brain, Tony Storm and Mina Mellons, Julia Hart and Blue Sky. They are the Sisters of Sin. And Willow Nightingale and Harley Cameron, the Babes of Wrath. And it really, that was the stipulation. It's already a 4-way women's tag match. No disqualification, no count out. Whoever wins this gets to pick the stipulation for their semifinal tag team match in the women's. There has to be a stipulation for the semifinal match in the tag team. He's hit the wall. Brian, I don't know if you sat through this, but I sat through having to fast forward 20 minutes to get through it. Did I miss anything of import?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a red-blooded male. I like seeing a bunch of women with wedgies rolling around for a while, and that was all right. It was fine for what it was. It was okay.
Yeah. They're doing good. They found a button.
You got to give it. You got to give it a chance one of these days. For if no other reason, there may be no one on the roster who could use your critique more than some of the women wrestlers in AEW in terms of what to do, how to do it, why to do it.
Nobody else listens. Why should I give it to them? And the show is 4.5 hours long. What are you laughing about?
Please don't give it to them.
Give it to me, baby. Give it to me, baby.
Well, that was the women's multi-team match.
It's 4.5 hours long, the show. We've got to try to save some of our lives. I'm not getting any younger. And I had to watch this match, and it took a while. The World Tag Team title match, Bandito and Burger King against FTR. And again, I was prepared to like this until it just went so fucking far. Obviously, Dax and Cash now, even though they're meaningless as far as draws now from what they're still excellent in-ring technicians. They've been booked into insensibility. Brody King ain't bad for a guy that big. He's just indie looking, in my opinion, and just indie minded, indie looking, blah. But he ain't bad. And Bandito can do some athletic shit. His basics and his timing, like most of the luchadors, suck donkey balls. So, well, I'm trying to be as polite as I can be.
Like most of the luchadors.
Yeah, well, really, that's, I'm just, that's what it is. They have rotten basics and the timing is off because they have a whole different style in their native land and in their native profession. But they got heat on Bandito, and then Bandito tried a double flapjack. They ran for him, but he didn't go up and back. He went up and tried to get under him and just boom. And it looked like that he hurt Dax when Dax landed on his elbow. They got a false tag to Brody King. So the referee's putting him out. FTR gets some more heat. Finally, Bandito hot tags Brody King. And he makes a big comeback and cannonballs them both in the corner. And he looks stiff with his big ass flying around. But then FTR's deal is they've got to put in so many twists and turns and so many fucking false finishes and so many. You thought it was it, didn't you? That it won't stop. When Brody King finally got that tag, and he's cooking, and then Dax superplexed Brody, and Cash did the leap off the top with the splash, but Brody King catches him by the neck, so it killed the superplex. He's not the Undertaker. Then the baby faces double team Dax. The heels roll out. Everything comes to a halt. I'm thinking, why didn't they go home after Brody King's comeback? They've still got 15 minutes, I guess. And they did a spot where Brody King was going to dive on Dax, and Stokely was supposed to shove Dax out of the way, and Brody King would hit Stokely, but Stokely went too far. Brody King went straight behind him, landed head first, and Stokely fell down too.
Ooh.
And laid there. Stokely laid there 15 minutes. He never touched him. And Brody King had broke his fucking neck. But why would you think Stokely was going to break Brody King's fall to begin with? If I'd have been Stokely, you were going to what? Fuck you. Come to think of it, that's probably why he pushed him too far. What the fuck?
Did you think Brody, when you saw it, and they never showed a replay of that live, like you had to go back and do it yourself, did you think Brody King got hurt?
Well, he should have, but I mean, it's 50-50 with a lot of this stuff. I wasn't like, I'm convinced he's not getting back in, but at the same time, I was like, well, that didn't come together well. But again, what numbnuts would think that Stokely was going to be in any way able to be helpful in breaking his fall? And like I said, if I was Stokely, I would have been there to begin with. Fucking 300-pound fat ass coming at me like a flying fucking bus. So then Dax and Bandito did a bunch of shit. And then FTR hit a power bomb and a splash on Bandito and got a 2 count. Okay, that's fine. But seconds later, Bandito, the guy that got power bombed and splashed, is pressing Cash over his head with one arm and throwing him onto Dax. And he goes the top rope and dives on both of them. So he's perfectly fine after that powerbomb splash. Then Bandito kicked the shit out of both of the heels. And then FTR hit their shatter machine on him and got a 2 count. Brody King saved. I'm like, Jesus. And then Cash gets the title belt. And he and Brody are having a tug of war with the belt while behind their back, Bandito rolls Dax up and gets a 2 count. When Dax kicks out, Bandito's coming toward him. Cash jerked the belt from Brody King and hit Bandito over the head with it behind the referee's back. It was perfect. Perfect timing, perfect shot, looked great. Cover, 1, 2, kick out. What the fuck? Why couldn't that be the goddamn finish? They're still going. Then they gave Dax the shatter machine and got a 2 count. And by this point, I've lost interest. FTR Spike pile drove Brody King on the apron and then double teamed Bandito and got another 2 count. And then Spike pile drove Bandito and got another 2 count. Now the fans are going batshit like, oh shit, he kicked out of that. Every move in tag team wrestling is being destroyed. And then Bandito stood up and gave FTR the double finger. And then they gave him the shatter machine, beat him 1, 2, 3. New champions, way too long, way too complicated at the end. And why is the referee just standing there watching the heels double team the guy, get a 2 count, Spike pile drive the guy, get a 2 count, shatter machine him, give the 2 count while the other guy's dead on the floor? That's my thoughts.
Hey, 20-minute match. Maybe it should have been like 12, if we're going to be fair. Again, the fans got into it, but that's the reason you do nonstop near falls. It's the cheap pop era of wrestling. Hey, we know we'll be able to get them to react to this, so let's just do it. And you could argue what damage is done to everything from pack throwing press slamming Darby to the floor to kicking out of everything. Again, Bandito's also a luchador, isn't he? Like, if there's any place the tombstone pile driver or a spike pile driver or any of these things would mean something,
yeah,
it would be there. And it was, again, just another 2 count. And when it's a match that has nonstop 2 counts on a card filled with nonstop 2 counts, again, you get the fan reaction eventually because even they can't believe that it's still going on.
Well, it's like the old 40 punches in the corner. And they get with the first 10, and then you get past 15 toward 18, and then they're like, what the fuck? And then when you go 28 to 30, then they start chuckling and they get with it again, and then they're roaring by 40. But you only do that once a fucking year.
Well, FTR, new tag team champion, Stokely Hathaway, was on the floor for the entirety of the remainder of the match. I thought Brody King broke his neck. When they didn't show the replay, I was like, oh, he broke his neck. But no, he got back out there. And
they didn't show the replay because Stokely had to lay there for the next 15 minutes and he never got touched.
Well, maybe one day Stokely will get touched. Apparently this is a problem with Stokely. But FTR, new tag team champions, 3-time AEW tag team champions. Jim, that is something to celebrate. Regardless of what you think, it's a major world tag team championship. Perhaps if Dax and Cash, or anyone who loves them, had a great picture frame where they can have photos of various title wins and title celebrations all throughout the years, even some short videos of the pinfalls and the big celebrations. We know someone who can help them, our good friends, and they can help all the listeners, our good friends at Aura Frames.
That's right, because Aura Frames can do everything that you just said. They can show pictures, they can show video clips, they can slideshow you. You can see, folks, let's say you're an old grandfather and you've got 18 grandchildren and you got some spread out around the country that you haven't even officially acknowledged, but you might be able to slip a picture of them in there somewhere. But boom! Your whole life could flash before your eyes every night. Well, maybe if you're an older person, you might not want to look at it that way. But you could definitely see all the people in your life that you don't want to forget what they look like by next Tuesday when you see little Billy again. Aura Frames is the perfect gift. And now it's the holidays, Brian. You've heard about this, right? The holidays are coming up. Yes. People give presents to each other.
That's right.
Well, now you know what to give because you can give thousands of presents with one gift. Because you get an Aura frame, and we've talked about them. Stacy's got them. Her nephew, her mother, they're tossing the family pictures back and forth. Or if you're just loved ones without being related, maybe a fiancé or a financier, whatever your relation, you get them this frame, and then boom, people can get their little code there and ship them the pictures into the frame from their phones. They can email them. They can share them all over the place, put soundtracks on them, maybe make fart noises behind grandma at the dinner table for holiday, especially if she's eating the beans. Dub some fart noises over grandma, send that video. It'll get over like crazy.
We're not talking about America's Funniest Home Videos. We're talking about Aura Frames. I got to say, we love them here in this house.
If you come in your grandmother's living room and you sit down and there's all the fucking pictures going by that you've sent her, and then there's a picture of her at the table eating beans going, it would have, I'm telling you right now.
Why would you want to picture that?
Well, because it'll be funny. Folks, the Aura Frames have been featured in 495 gift guides during 2024 alone, and boy, 2025 is shaping up. The #1 digital picture frame by a lot of magazines, including Wirecutter and Wired. I don't know why people in the telephone business and the cocaine addicts are having their own magazines, but also it's recommended by Good Morning America, The Today Show, Forbes, The Wall Street Journal, and many, many people that want to just give you pictures of themselves and some in revealing positions, possibly, and have you watch them on your credenza. Takes about 2 minutes to set up. You've got control over who has access to your frame, although for a substantial fee, some of that information may be made available. It just depends. I'm trying to get the handle on this thing, Brian, because I'm going to get a bunch of people's codes and I'm going to start sending them all pictures of Phyllis Diller all at the same time.
Again, maybe not the best example or a sales point that anyone would want or use.
Well, but I'm having trouble because the Aura app lets you share photos more securely than with the email. See, I can't hack this thing yet. I'm trying, though. I've got pictures of my sphincter also. And you can upload videos of up to 30 seconds long, and your favorite live iPhone photos will play right on the frame. They've got a speaker that plays audio. Excellent high resolution.
Turns itself off at night. That's pretty cool. When the lights go out, so does the frame.
Yes, it's like you don't even have to put a blanket over it like the parakeet's cage. And folks, once again, we can save you some money on this type of thing.
Yeah.
All you have to do is go to Aura, A-U-R-A, auraframes.com, and you're going to get $45 off the best-selling Carver matte frames by using the promo code JCE when you check out Aura Frames, A-U-R-A, auraframes.com. The promo code JCE. It's Black Friday, Cyber Monday. It's the best sale you're going to get. Tell them you heard about it here. $45 off. And as we said, it's good for the whole family. And Granny doesn't even need to know how to work it. You send her the pictures and the fart noises.
Once again, Aura Frames. No noises necessary. But we love them here in this house. I've actually purchased several more to give out as gifts for the holidays. Check them out today. Fast delivery. An exclusive $45 off the Carver mat.
Stacy was over at her mom's the other day, and guess what she saw? A picture of her great aunt shaking hands with Bob Hope.
Farting?
No. Bob Hope? Bob didn't fart. He was hard of hearing, though. Shaking hands with Bob Hope during a World War II USO type of appearance.
I gotta tell you, Jim, promo code JCE. But let's get back to Newark, New Jersey.
Oh, I cut you off on that, didn't I?
JCE, Newark, New Jersey, Jim. AEW Full Gear is in full effect.
Well, the Casino Gauntlet match was next for the National Heavyweight Championship. And Brian, again, did anybody, I know Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley cooperated with this because at this point they were probably laughing to themselves. We'll get paid to do this idiot's idea. But nobody with a clue laid out any of this match. Maybe they laid out some of it, but nobody was in charge of all of it. This was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. It's a gauntlet match, but they actually come out and say the guys come out at random intervals, which was sometimes it was 45 seconds. It might be fucking 2 minutes. We don't know. And it's another match where there is no disqualification. Yeah, other people can come out and freely be involved because, yeah. And we're just going to send a bunch of random people out and not pay any attention to how that most of them are going to have nothing to fucking do once they're out there. So they start out with Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley, and obviously that is the anticipation, and they had teased it once and then never promoted it. That, it might be Lashley versus Benjamin. So then they win the matches. They're the first two guys in. And they kind of spar around and kind of like they're going to go for something. It is kind of like they're starting to set up a little friendly shoot in the gym or whatever. And before they actually really do anything but back up in a corner, the music plays and here comes Ricochet. Our little bald bitch friend with a microphone. hey, come on, you guys got to fight. We don't want any of that wrestling crap. Oh, the last thing we want is wrestling on this wrestling show. But that's what they could have done. Bobby and Shelton both are high level enough amateur wrestlers that if they'd have bothered to, not they being Shelton and Bobby, but if whoever came up with this fiasco had bothered to say, hey, how about for the first couple of minutes, you start out, you don't really want to do it, but okay, you start to have the little friendly shoot and you lock up and you go down and you're working some amateur wrestling, and then somebody, it doesn't matter which one, gets the goddamn sit out. The other guy gets frustrated a little bit. You hook it up a little bit more and build that for 2 minutes where each guy gets away from each other a couple times, and just where they're starting to get testy with each other. And maybe that's when MVP might get up on the apron and go, wait a minute, to get to people invest in this. And then Dickhead's music plays. And then here he comes with the goddamn deal. And at that point, while he's coming down the aisleway with the microphone, his stooges, Tia Leone and Bishop Khan, they jump Lashley and Benjamin from behind, and Ricochet then beats MVP up in a fake way. And you know MVP could stretch the fucking guy. And these stooges that, as I mentioned, I think Khan's the smaller one. He's got some kind of potential. The big one's the shits, and they physically beat Lashley and Benjamin up, but they didn't do anything near to them what had been done to Darby Allin in the previous match or whatever. But Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley are going to lay there, Brian. I didn't go back to time it. Would you say it was 15 minutes?
The match was at least 20, maybe a little bit more. Yeah, I would say at least 15 minutes, yeah.
Okay, so the referees come out, get Ricochet stooges out of there, and they help MVP to the back. But Lashley and Benjamin just slide over to the railings out kind of the immediate camera view and are going to lay there without getting up for the next 10 to 15 minutes. Then here comes Claudio, and this is a mess already. And then Garcia. And Hurt said he could still lay in there. And this black hole of charisma, Garcia gets in, and he's a heel, but he's beating up Ricochet. And then they've got a situation where they've got two heels beating up one heel, and the two baby faces. There have been people in propofol-induced comas that came around on their own quicker. Then Pockets comes out. I'm like, good God, it gets worse. And he wanders in and does comedy with Ricochet and botched a spot with Claudio. And then here comes Wheeler again. What the fuck? Pockets is standing in the ring. Wheeler's wandering out. Then they just 3-on-1 Pockets. And I wrote, I swear to God, Shelton and Bobby are still laying on the floor. And so this, when they're not using furniture and setting people on fire, now I know why they do all those things, because this is how they lay their matches out. And then Kevin Knight came out. At that point, I wanted to be unconscious with Lashley and Benjamin. And then Roderick Strong. And every time somebody comes out, they'll get in and do something, and then a bunch of people will just disappear. And a couple of guys may do spots with each other. Then here came Fat Ass Davis. He is goddamn immense. His ass has its own gravitational pull. And he's got a great pile driver. But it doesn't beat anybody. He used it twice. They just got right back up and kept going. And then Hong Kong Phooey. Is this a rib? Has there ever been a douchier, more unlikable babyface? And this, now they get, Spitball and Kevin Knight are partners like Lashley and Benjamin. Lashley and Benjamin could have effectively, if they'd have structured it this way, worked legitimate amateur wrestling and got people into it. These two do a kung fu movie routine with each other where they're hopping up and down like they're both barefoot and they're on a fucking hot frying pan. And just back bends and fucking. And then here comes Matt Menard. And for a minute, I said, Matt, who the fuck is Matt Menard? It's Mac Daddy. Remember Mac Daddy?
Of course.
He hadn't been on a show in 3 fucking years.
From the Jericho Appreciation Society.
Apparently, he was Garcia's trainer or mentor. So we have him to blame. And he and Garcia had I can only describe it as a girls' slap fight. And then they went to the floor and Garcia ran out of the building away from Mac Daddy. And at that point, Claudio and Fat Ass were in the ring and Shelton and Bobby woke up from their slumber like Rip Van fucking Winkle. And they slid in the ring and beat everybody up. They went from, we've been unconscious for 15 minutes to, well, let's throw 6 people around. And then they cornered Ricochet. And I thought, good, they'll kill him. They'll just kill him dead. And then everybody else did something. And Ricochet hit Kevin Knight with something. And Ricochet beat Kevin Knight. So he's the new national champion. This was one of the biggest messes I've ever seen perpetrated in a wrestling ring. And just endless entrances of nobodies in a match that made no fucking sense whatsoever.
And that was one of the good matches. No, it was a bit of a shit show. Entertaining just because, again, you don't know who's going to come next. You don't know when, because there's no set reason. The Royal Rumble in '89, it was a big deal when I was a kid that it began with Axe and Smash. 1 and 2 were Demolition. And they didn't eliminate each other. They didn't hate each other. But for a moment there, they pounded the shit out of each other. And then the match continued. We didn't get anything with Lashley. Like you said, an amateur workout like you would have seen on Florida TV with those two.
Yeah.
Would have been good.
And then somebody starts to lose the temper right before they're interrupted. You never want. Here's the thing, and I know what the thing with Demolition, and that was their, Road Warrior-like type of personality. But I believe you don't ever want partners punching each other in the face, trying to do damage to each other. If they're forced in a situation where they have to wrestle, it would be the legitimate wrestling thing, and then a temper would flare, but they would be interrupted. If they go too far, then it just kills the credibility of the team. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think about also Dory versus Terry in, what was it, 80 or 81?
81, 56 minutes.
Yeah. As part of the tournament, 2 baby faces, no one turned. They were brothers. They made it work somehow. It wasn't, not saying it was the most exciting match of all time, but the concept. What do you think of the national belt? Obviously, taking its look from the classic 1980s national championship.
Well, I don't care if it takes its look from the goddamn Hope Diamond. It's ridiculous. The national champion, the TNT champion, the fucking world champion, the interim fucking dipshit champion. Everybody, and he has the guys carry belts from other promotions. And sometimes there's guys coming out with carrying 2 belts, and there's 6-man belts, and it's just silly. And it has diluted everything to where you would have to think that only the most diehard minority of the AEW fans would be able to, off the top of their head right now, who holds all the belts in AEW? Don't even talk about Ring of Honor. or any outside companies, New Japan, and don't even think about Mercedes's 13 fucking belts or whatever it is. Just who's the champions in this main company? How the fuck?
Who's the TNT champion right now? Oh, no, I do
Well,
know.
we ain't got to it
That's
yet.
actually on the show. I was trying to think of the champions in my head. That's right.
I know that because I've got it written down here in a few minutes, but it's another belt because they're belt. Tony is a belt mark, and the other guys are marks for having belts. But would you like to talk about the guy who's a mark for himself, probably bigger than anybody in the company, Brian, at this point? Old Dick the Boozer, our friend and colleague.
Yeah, this is kind of where the show took a turn in a direction that I really didn't like.
Well, it's funny how it happens that way every time Moxley gets in the fucking ring. A no-holds-barred match with Kyle O'Reilly and our friend John Moxley. And I know you're going to say, well, wait a minute. The previous two, hold on. How many matches have had rules tonight? Wait a minute. From the opening 6-man technically was not a no DQ match, but only 2 guys joined at 10 minutes in. Darby and Pac, I don't believe was a no DQ match, but they got away with a lot of shit. The 4-way women's was no DQ. The World Tag title wasn't no DQ, but by cracky, the goddamn Casino Gauntlet was. Now we've got a no-holds-barred match. And at first, for a couple seconds, they tried wrestling like Darby and Pac did. And Kyle O'Reilly is not bad at an MMA influence mat wrestling style, but they couldn't do Darby and Pac. They don't look physically as athletic. They weren't as sharp. They weren't as crisp. They didn't do it as long. And Moxley can't do it at all. No bueno, as they say about Moxley's pro wrestling basics. They tried to grapple, but Moxley gets stretched in the amateur tournaments in Cincinnati. So Moxley got a fork and stabbed O'Reilly in the head 15 times. Imagine this, Kyle got color. So now he's bleeding. He can't just stab him once. He stabbed him 15 fucking times. And now this highlights Moxley's tough guy work and attitude. He's committed to it, but it's so fake. And he does such stupid, silly things. It's not like evil or sadistic. It's jackassy and throwing a guy off the porch type of shit. And the fans through this entire match, Brian, am I telling a lie? They sat there and stared until somebody got stabbed with a fork, did something gross, or bit somebody that was bloody.
Yeah.
That's when they popped, right?
Pretty much.
And he stabbed him in the nipple with his fork. And in between that, this was as exciting as dry rot because that's all Moxley's about. And again, I've been a fan of Kyle's, but the time to elevate him into a top spot was years ago when he first came in. Instead of making him a welcome mat and a fucking throw rug that just gets beat all the time, and then years later suddenly he's making the fucking former world champion that would never do a job tap out. Well, was Dean Ambrose's work, I may have asked you this before, was it as bad as John Moxley's is while he was there and they have some level of professional criteria? Or is this just all degenerated now as part of his downhill spiral?
You know, now that like all the camp counselors are dead, John Moxley is just John Moxley unleashed. He was never good. It used to drive me crazy because I would hear the comparisons to Terry Funk or Roddy Piper. And I was like, oh, I got to see this guy. And I'd watch him and he sucks. And then I'd be, all right, maybe it was a bad night. And I'd watch him again and he sucks. And he still sucks. But now it's also disgusting. It's bad ideas run amok.
Well, they popped when Kyle stabbed Moxley with a fork. Then they went for about 5 miles an hour for a while. And then O'Reilly just got a 10-foot chain out from under the ring and wrapped it around Moxley. And Moxley wrapped it around Kyle. And they just held double front face locks on each other. And then I don't know what this was supposed to be. They each grabbed an end of the chain and held onto it, but traded forearms with their bare arm. And then O'Reilly stabbed Moxley's hand with a fork. I'm just looking at these notes. Moxley got a chair and Pillmanized O'Reilly's arm, stomped on it. And, so the announcer, oh, his arm might be broken. And then they rolled around a while and O'Reilly got an ankle lock on Moxley with the chain around his leg, which didn't matter really and didn't add any leverage to the thing. And Moxley tapped out. And the people do cheer anytime Moxley doesn't win for obvious reasons, but this was the invincible world champion that just beat everybody for so long. And suddenly, after he loses the belt, well, now I'm going to tap out 18 times to Kyle O'Reilly, of all people, all of a sudden. I don't. And we were over 2 hours into the pay-per-view. There was another 2+ hours to go. And they've already had, as I mentioned, several of the anything goes, no holds barred. We've got chains, we got chairs, we got people coming in. And they got 2 hours more of this to go. But I'm happy for Kyle O'Reilly. Nice kid. That they're using him better. Wish they had him from the start. But I've never understood anything Moxley has done yet. And what is his goddamn mission? What is the movie character that he's imitating or ripping off, or what is going on with the thing?
Forky from Toy Story.
It's just bad. It's not good. It's unnecessary. And Moxley always takes it too far. And it's not just the fork. It's now the fork. It's been a bunch of these different things. On the positive side, Kyle O'Reilly went over. Let's see how they book him coming out of this. Tony Khan is notorious for being bad with following up on things. And Jon Moxley and the Death Riders are notorious for not letting feuds end. So we'll see what happens next here, but the Moxley stuff, I guess I'll say it here. I wish the New Jersey State Athletic Control Board governed wrestling. And this card, I don't mean to sound like JJ Binns or anything, but this card was as bloody a card I think as I've ever seen. To the point where there were pools of blood in multiple matches in the middle of the ring.
Oh no, they've done way worse.
I don't know. This was, I think, too gruesome. You remember the argument from Amanda Huber last time. I know better than to let my kids watch a Jon Moxley match at midnight. If AEW is supposed to be for everyone, Tony, is it supposed to be that your kids can't watch the pay-per-views at all? Because I just think it's gone too far, and this kind of triggered the beginning of the rest of the night. With the exception of the Young Bucks match and Mercedes. Just everything I thought went too far.
Yeah, the Hardley boys ain't gonna get a lot of great Muda juice jobs, but that's the thing. I'm not offended at the quantity of the blood. I'm offended at the fact that none of it means anything anymore because they do it so many often, match after match after match, and it's as meaningless as everything else now. I'm more offended by the electrocutions and the flamethrowers and the people being flung off high precipices, especially when there's a fake crash pad to make it even more stupid or whatever, rather than just the blood. It's just the blood. Tony's stuck. He's hit the wall. Every match has blood. Every match has goddamn is for money. Every match has multiple people. Every match is for a belt. This is what he's stuck on. So the next match, believe it or not, I know you won't, for the TNT title that we were talking about a few minutes ago with Kyle Felcher and Mark Briscoe, Brian, this was no DQ. Anything goes. if Briscoe was going to lose and he was going to have to join the family, or elsewise Kyle was going to lose the title, but then they added no DQ, anything goes. And here we go. The first 2 minutes, they're on the floor. They've used the chair. Briscoe hit him multiple times with a chair, gave him a brain buster. Or no, Kyle gave Briscoe the brain buster on a chair on the floor. But seconds, and this isn't the first 2 minutes of the match, but seconds later, after taking a brain buster on the chair on the floor, Mark pulls out a ladder and puts Kyle on the ladder and got back in the ladder's tilted on the barricade around the fans.
That ladder was made out of tinfoil. That ladder was made out of tinfoil.
That I don't know what it was made out of, but I don't want to be fucking flying over the top rope as Briscoe did over the top rope in a cannonball to land on the fucking ladder. And Kyle beat him up with the ladder. They haven't been in the ring at that point in 5 fucking minutes. And again, they've already done 2 or 3 hospitalization angles. And then Kyle threw another ladder in the ring, and Briscoe was bleeding like a stuck hog. And he was beating on him with the ladder. So I made notes. I'm going to try to find the finish. This is unwatchable. I fast forward 5 minutes. Kyle gives Mark Briscoe a fucking... He drove him through the table with a spear or body tackle or whatever, and then hit him with a power bomb and got a 2 count. So I fast forwarded another 4 minutes. I stop, and there's another table in the ring, and 1,000 thumbtacks are already on the mat. And they were in the process of fighting on top of a 15-foot ladder, where they then fell off and went through the table, where then Mark Briscoe pulled out another table from underneath the ring, but this had coils of barbed wire duct taped to it. And he couldn't get it in the ring because the leg folded out and he had to go and take forever. Finally got it in the ring. But when Mark brings the barbed wire wrapped table in, Kyle has gotten a screwdriver and kicked Mark in the balls and stabbed him in the head 10 times with the screwdriver and then started licking the blood off of him. At that point, we were 20 minutes into the match. I said, I can't do it anymore. And apparently sometime later, Mark won the match and the TNT belt. What did he use? A bazooka or some type of, I don't know, a guillotine type apparatus with a sharp blade?
Yeah, again, it went further than it needed to, for longer than it needed to, 25 minutes, that match. And it came on the heels of the Moxley match. They did a no DQ match after a no holds barred match. You know, good for Mark Briscoe. I hate the fact that this would in any way, and I don't think it does, but I think it could be presented that way, validate Tony's booking philosophy of bring guys in, beat them, just have everyone beat them, and it doesn't matter. You just got to give him a little run and it overtakes everything else. He's tried that with Kyle O'Reilly. He's tried that with Mark Briscoe here now.
Well, if it did work, his ratings would be up and interest in these people would be interested.
Yeah, and that's it. I'm happy for Mark Briscoe. And, yeah.
Well, then, Brian, you know, we've got a problem on the roster. The former EVPs who made a big deal a few years ago about having been signed for more money than any tag team ever, and they were EVPs making 7 figures. Well, suddenly after they did an angle where they pile drove their boss, but then they never followed up on that. But they got sideways with everybody and they lost their EVP status, and apparently they didn't save their money because within months after all of this stuff happening, they were completely broke. Then they won several $100,000 in a fake match, but then one of the dipshit brothers went to the casino where he has a gambling problem and lost $500,000 in the time it took to film a vignette. And then they've been broke again, and now they're in a match for $1 million. Boy, this was a hot angle. Josh Alexander and the Cucamonga Kids against Jungle Jackoff, Dino Douche, and our old friend Twinkle Toes McFingerbang is back. Kenny, he's moped back in with his head down to have another multiple man match for no reason, with and for and against people who fuck him around, and he never does anything about it. So the fans yawned when the Bucks came out. Alexander might be okay, but he's stuck with these dipshits, and we know what we think about the other three. So I said, all right. I bet you that if when they ring the bell, if I skip ahead 20 minutes, they're still going to be going. And I skipped ahead 20 minutes, and son of a bitch, they proved me wrong. They had just done the finish. So I had to back up 2 minutes to see it, but I was right in that they would take too much time, because then they got a big, long, fucking drawn out fake angle to do. So they did a 6-way with everybody boosting people up into flips, and somehow one of them busted Josh Alexander open hard way over his eye. And then Kenny and Dino put both of the Hardley boys on their shoulders, like for a chicken fight, shoulder ride. And Jungle Boy did a double clothesline off the top on the Bucks, but the Bucks landed on their feet after backflipping and super kicked Dino and Kenny. But then Jungle Boy backflipped off the top rope at the Bucks, but they double super kicked him. Then they double super kicked Dino. Then they double super kicked Alexander by mistake when Jungle Boy had ducked. And then Kenny gave Alexander the one-wing fairy on the floor. But then the Buckaroos gave Jungle Boy the shitty double knee lift and beat him 1, 2, 3. It was just a fucking mess. And I only saw 2 minutes of the 20. So then they start the angle. The little kiddies from Cucamonga have won $1 million, and now they're rich again. And Don wants them to be part of the family. And Don takes the Bucks, and they're leaving with their bags of money, and there's still 5 or 6 heels in the ring. And they start getting sloppy, boring heat on Kenny. And the Bucks seem fake upset, but Don said, don't worry about him, come with us. It was milked so long, you knew, because the camera was lingering. They went so long, it was past the point where you knew already. And they run back to the ring, and the Buckaroos beat up all the heels and save Kenny. And Dino chokeslammed Fat Ass Davis and got him maybe 12 inches off the mat. Good God, he must have a gravitational pull like he's on the planet Mercury or some shit. They need a tree crane to get him up in the air. And then the Buckaroos shake hands. What? I'm just, these people, they need to make a living too. The Buckaroos shook hands with Jungle Boy and Dino, but they're milking it with Kenny. And the fans are chanting, hug it out, hug it out. My God, I just think back to, do you think that the people in the Omni in Atlanta chanted hug it out when there was Dusty looking at Ole and they were contemplating it for the first? This is a soft group of fucking pansies. Anyway, Kenny slaps their hands away that they offer and hugs them instead. And they got some mild applause, and I can't wait to see the fans turn on the babyface Buckaroos in 2 weeks when they're still this fucking boring. But this thing had to take well over half an hour to get accomplished from start to finish.
the lack of reaction from the fans at times was telling to the Buck stuff. You know, we've been saying it's all the bad drama, the bad storylines that they come up with themselves, and then, you know, the bad execution. Kind of knew they were going this way with Omega, and it had to play out this way. The idea that they were walking down the rampway with all their money, and Don Callis just kept saying, let's go spend this money. Let's go spend.
Yes.
They just won this money. Let's go spend this money.
That's how you got in this position.
And these guys who care about nothing more than money all of a sudden drop the money. Why did they drop the money when they ran to the ring to save Kenny?
I'd have carried the money back with me.
Right. Why would you take those?
Yeah.
I would hit them with the bags of money. See what happens. But they just gave him the bag. Here you go. You can keep this money. Why? It made no sense.
Well, because their friends are worth more than $1 million to them or whatever the fuck it is.
It's crazy that here we are 6 years in, and look at the state of these guys who were the alleged big stars as things were getting going, the guys who had all the indie buzz.
Still in the same place doing the same shit.
Everyone's, just more injuries, just less time left to actually help the business of AEW. But that's an impossible task at this point. But there it is, the reuniting of the Elite. Now I guess we have to wait until they do the big dramatic thing where Adam Page somehow gets pulled back into this, and him and Kenny make up. And then everyone can be made up, and everyone can be friends. Everything about this is friends again. There was another promo I just saw. What was it? Where the guy was like, and we could be friends again. It's all about friendship. I don't even remember, but everything in AEW about friendship.
Friendship my ass.
Well, you know, Jim, if I had asked you in advance to pick what you think will happen, will the Bucks, after telegraphing it for weeks, make up with Kenny, or will they join the Callis family? I think you would have been able to give me an educated pick, but what if I had asked a football fan for an educated pick on football, and so on and so forth? There are prizes at stake. Jim, you know what I'm talking about.
No, I don't.
Prize Picks.
Prize Picks. Hey, you know, if there's an educated football fan out there, I'd like to meet him. No, if there's an educated football fan out there, it's time for the bowl games, the big games coming up over the wintertime, or they got the basketball matchups going on. It's the best time of year for sports. It's all happening, all just willy-nilly out there in the ether. And while you're out there making decisions about your daily life, what Christmas presents am I going to buy? What am I going to eat today? What game am I going to watch? Am I really going to continue running around on my wife with that stripper from down on Dixie Highway? You're making decisions.
Dixie Highway.
But sometimes it can feel good to be right. Well, especially on Dixie Highway, but also you can make money at Prize Picks. Folks, you say you've got a daily fantasy. I keep going back to Dixie Highway, but it's a fantasy about sports.
That was
She's wearing pads.
I believe that's where Dixie Carter invited Kevin Nash to take a drive.
Woo, go down the Dixie Highway, baby, on the highway to hell.
Allegedly.
You can go to Prize Picks. Let's go back to them. They don't have anybody on Dixie Highway, but they have early payouts. If your lineup gets off to a hot start, you may now have the option to cash out these winnings before the game even finishes. And then just in case anything goes sideways at the end, get the fuck out of there. Put that money in and take it with you. Don't drop it like the Bucks did. Whenever Prize Picks gives you money, it's going to be in an unmarked brown paper bag. Just stick it inside your knapsack.
That's not how it works. That's not how it will be.
Take the fuck off.
No, again, everything is done through the wonders of the internet and technology on your phone, on your computer. Prize Picks is there. A transaction right to your account. Nothing to worry about.
Yes.
No handoff, no transactions in person. Leave you alone.
It's hands off, all right. They're not gonna ever stooge on you. You don't have to worry. They're not gonna sing. If they get hauled into court, their lips are sealed. Folks, Prize Picks is simple to play. You just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats. And if you get your picks right, you can cash in. Get in on the action in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. And they offer stacks. You can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. He's just going to do everything. And if he does, then if he knows what he's good for or what's good for him, he'll continue to do it.
What?
Because when they get a bunch of picks on some of these people, they go and have a little talk with them personally.
No, they don't. Let's not
They
even
say,
joke
you
about
better
that.
perform up to goddamn
there
snuff.
are no goddamn talks with any people. There's nothing like that going on.
Well, nobody's going to phone it in like Okada. They're going to try their best when they're out there because they know if they don't, they're going to be taken out back and horsewhipped.
Again,
because there's stuff on the line here.
Not Prize Picks ain't whipping anyone. And
America's #1 fantasy sports app is not going to put up with any of these mollycoddled athletes putting in a half-ass effort. If they don't go out there and play their little hearts out, they're going to get slapped around.
No, well, again, they will not have any direct access to any of the athletic talent. We want to stress that. But, Jim, lots of the listeners out there watch the athletic talent on display, especially on Sundays.
And after all, what is an athlete without his supporters?
Jim, every Sunday people are watching the football game, and they may have some picks. They may think that they're ready to make some money. We have a way, and of course, a promo code, and of course, an efficient way to get there right now.
Well, that's right. You can join millions of users. You can be a user of your own and sign up for America's #1 fantasy sports app. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code JCE to get $50 in lineups. After you play your first $5 lineup, you show them your $5, they'll show you their $50. Yours is smaller, theirs is bigger. That's code JCE on the Prize Picks app to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup, because at Prize Picks, it's good to be right.
I messed up a little bit there, but why not?
You think?
We're talking about Full Gear. Back to Full Gear. We still have the men's and women's world championship matches.
Yes, and of course, both of them are equal, according to Adam Page. So we've got to term them like that. Well, the women's came up first, the flip of the coin. Mercedes Moon against Chris Statlander. And again, by the time the bell rang for this thing, 3.5 hours into the show, plus the pre-show, and now you've got two girls, not in a no DQ, no holds barred fucking gimmick match. They're going to try to be Dory Funk Jr. and Jack Briscoe. And they're going to have a 20+ minute wrestling match, marred with a few modern things. They started out at 100 miles an hour. They had their choreography, and they go from one thing to another by rote. It's move to move. It's not reaction. Holy shit, get myself together, come back. No, it's just, we're going to this and this and this. Because they're trying to have a classic match with a lot of moves like they've seen on their Japanese videotapes. Then they got the dive in, then the spot on the floor. Then Statlander took a superplex, or gave a superplex, and went for a 450 off the top rope, but Mercedes moved, so Statlander sold her arm and rolled to the floor, and the referee brought it to a halt. And why? I thought she fooled me. I thought, well, she really has hurt her arm, because why would you just bring everything to a halt right now? And then Mercedes comes off the apron and hits a Meteora on her on the floor and gets heat on her. And of course, Aubrey Ed was the referee. Brian, who's a better referee for wrestling, Aubrey Ed or Seabiscuit? I'm just wondering. So Mercedes was working the arm. I zoned out. I believe Stacy asked me a question. But a few minutes later, they were both selling, and Mercedes went to the top and went for a splash, but Statlander raised her feet into the face, and then they were both motionless forever, so long that the announcers were plugging dynamite. I mean, seriously, they've got to, because it has to be a long match to be a classic. So they have to do a bunch of shit they don't sell and then sell forever, whether anything was done to a person or not.
And again, after a lot of bloody, gory matches and a lot of long kick out of everything matches.
Yes, now we got two girls wrestling. And if Statlander raised her feet and caught Mercedes in the face, then why can't Statlander get up? Nevertheless, after a while longer, they go back and forth. Statlander gets a crossface. It's the old, the crippler crossface or whatever. And Mercedes just gets out of it and gets her own. So the heel breaks out of the babyface's move and then they rolled around and they fought on the top turnbuckle. And Statlander gave her some kind of big move off the top and covered her and to kick out with no reaction because it's 20 minutes in. It's almost 4 hours into the show. And finally, just apropos of not really a lot, in my opinion, Statlander just scooped her up and gave her a tombstone, 1, 2, 3. And Peter, so it's about time the overpaid, under-talented bitch did a job. But I don't know why they didn't. I think Statlander still just doesn't exude a lot of confidence and personality. And they were having Mercedes beat Toni Storm, right? Which personality is almost all she's got anymore. But I'm not advocating that Mercedes should have won this match. She still got 13 belts. But
14.
God damn, did they have to be out there for a half an hour?
I thought it was 14 belts now.
She would have had 14 if she won this one, right?
I don't know, because she won depends, like she had the interim women's championship and then she won the other championship. Do you count that? I guess it's one championship now, yeah.
Well, no, because they had a belt made for the interim title. So I guess when she's the ROH interim women's champion and the ROH women's champion, that's 2 belts.
You know, this match really didn't stand too much of a chance just because of where it was on this card, considering everything on this card. This was the cleanest wrestling match on the entire card. With the exception of the 6-man match, but to be fair, they had pyro in the middle of the match. And
I was about to say that was gimmicked up. It wasn't really clean with 2 guys coming in the middle and toward the end and all this other stuff.
I hate to say because it's the women's world title, but they should have started the show with this before everything got completely crazy and they had to change the mat several times.
It actually probably would have gotten over if they'd have started with this.
Well, that was the women's championship match. And of course, Jim, a big steel cage match for the AEW World Championship. The champion Hangman Adam Page versus Samoa Joe.
And now we're 4 hours into the show, plus the pre-show. And here comes the cage. And Brian, usually in the course of not just any particular company, but it's as a general course in wrestling, you can kind of figure if you're a longtime fan, they're building this is going to be the one. This is going to be the guy who's going to win the title. And they went past that point a couple of times with Moxley when everybody's like, this ought to be it. That ought to be it. And he didn't lose. All of a sudden here, Samoa Joe, the babyface beats him clean in their first match. Then he switches heel. And then I can't remember what they did last time. And then now, did you see that this was going to be the climax of Hangnail Adam Page's, triumphant reign as champion? That now was going to be did it seem like that they had built this up where this would be the end of the road for little Rico there?
I mean, looking back now, I guess maybe you could argue they had beaten Samoa Joe so much in the feud that you couldn't believe he would actually lose again. He bled as much as I've ever seen him bleed by far. But I guess we'll get there.
Well, and that's the thing is, I didn't call this. I'm not arguing. I said beforehand, I'd love to see Samoa Joe win the belt from this fucking goof, but it didn't seem like that they peaked this to where most people believed it was going to happen, which is why they pay to see things. But nevertheless, Joe got color 3 minutes in. And then Page took his cowboy boot and hit Joe over the head 12 times with the heel of his boot and covered Joe and got a 1 count. Even if it's Page, who I think is Drek, these baby faces are all so weak. And there was nothing for him to do in this match that hadn't been done already. And it's 2 guys in a cage. They're going to bleed and they're not going to, it's just Page, I guess, but I don't like any of his matches. He does the same shit. Joe's great when he's got as a heel, when he has a smaller, sympathetic baby face that knows how to work, but this was just, Joe bled so much. At one point I was thinking, he didn't really do anything to deserve this. Page has beat him every fucking time. What horrible thing is that? And now he's about to die of blood loss. The fans were kind of getting on his side. And Page was bleeding too, but not as bad. But
no, with Joe, you could see it pumping out every time he was taking a breath. Yeah.
But that's the thing is, besides the bleeding, not much happened in this fucking match. Then Shapoopy came out and got the title belt and climbed the cage, but Kingston came out and jerked him down. And while that was going on, literally because they missed it with the camera, they bumped the referee. And Page got a cover, but no referee was there to count it. So Hobbs came out. And I swear to God, they tried to recreate Kane ripping the cage door off. And what we got was Hobbs grabbing the chain with the big padlock that was chaining the door closed and just pulling for a second, and the gimmick chain broke. You couldn't believe it. It was too easy. The idea is not to just clip it and stick it together with toothpaste. It's rig it where it's a struggle, but the giant beast gets the... Anyway, he ripped the door open, but then Page beat Hobbs up. But then Joe got a sleeper on Page, but Page ran him into the turnbuckle. Page hit him with a buckshot lariat and covered him. There's still no referee. Then Hook comes in and picks up the title belt and turns around and hit Page with the title belt and takes his jacket off, and he's got an ops shirt on. So all the time that he was telling Joe that he was mad at him because they turned on him and left him alone or whatever, now he's gone back to the ops, who apparently have the entire outlaw mud show crew of New Jersey in their dojo. And Joe gave Page a muscle buster on the belt and covered him 1, 2, 3 and won the title, but it was not a good match. And it was a rotten finish. And at least Page is not the champion anymore. I can only assume that even Tony realized. Or do you think they do realize? Or do you think it was just time for somebody else to win it? Or did Tony realize that Adam Page was a shitty world champion?
I don't know if Tony realized that. I don't think I can concede that. No. I think they have an idea. I mean, we'll talk about the post-match in a moment. You know, again, I said it earlier. There are matches with a lot of blood that I love. This card had too much blood. This match, Samoa Joe, however he hit it I mean, it was gushing like 10 minutes after it started gushing. There's blood everywhere. So I don't know. You're almost immune to it in a sense, but it feels like we're getting more and more, not just more matches with blood, but more blood in the actual matches.
Well, they got to outdo what they've done because they've already established a baseline of complete chaos and carnage. So then how do you improve on that? It's what they've this is the corner they've been working toward for 6 years. They've lost most of their legitimate main event talent. Many others are hurt. The booking has led to they just do the same shit for hours at a time, to dwindling returns based on people getting tired of seeing the same shit all the time. And then, well, can we go to what happens next? Now they've got a brand new world champion. The lights go out, and there's a video on the screen of a burning house. And here comes Prince Nana out on a stage for a big laser light show. And Swerve comes out. Swerve Strickland to a new but still shitty entrance song. And he strolls to the ring with Nana dancing. And Stacy had walked in the room while I'm watching this. And it took him so long to get to the ring. I asked her, I said, how old is Nana? He's going to blow up from dancing. Swerve is the fucking athlete. He's just walking like he don't give a shit. And Nana's trying to put the whole thing in the dancing. Paige was still laying there in the ring. It's been 5 minutes since he got beat, but he's still laying there because they want to paint a dramatic picture and they have no idea in their heads when they go over this shit verbally how long all this shit's going to take. And nothing happened as Swerve took off his jacket and stared at Joe. And then all the ops dojo members who are standing there in the t-shirts, they just start feeding Swerve while Joe jumps out of the ring and leaves. And Swerve beats up the op stooges who obviously are letting him and feeding him one at a time to do this stuff forever. And then Paige got up and clotheslined one of them. And they played music and that was it. And Stacy, what did I just watch? Is this a parody? What the fuck is happening?
It's a big moment. Swerve and Adam Page on the same side, reunited. He even had the burning house in the video to celebrate the good times.
Yeah, and beating up fucking 12 guys we've never seen before.
You heard the pop from the crowd in the dark because I guess they had to get Nana out on the stage and he, glitters. So they saw him out there. He was doing the same dance he was doing for the other song with this song. Like, he didn't mix it up at all. It's just, okay, another song I'll do the exact same thing to. He's got to be at least 55. But,
oh, come on. He's not that old.
I think so. What, you think that's that? I don't think it's that old. 50 is the new, 30.
Well, I'll tell you what, 64 is fucking awful goddamn old either way.
Swerve Strickland, an AEW star, returns. Now you have the Ops, I guess, established maybe a little more as a top heel faction with Hobbs as the chain-busting power man and Samoa Joe as the devious world champion and Hook as the kid. Shibata as the...
It used to be Jackie Coogan. Now it's Hook.
That's right. That's right. With Hook. We always talk about Tony doubling down on the things that, like, why? Maybe they'll prove me wrong. Maybe Hook will have a heel run here where you finally see it. But why would you be giving Hook a main spot like this right now? But that was AEW.
Good.
Oh, go ahead.
It fits the story. It fits the story that Tony wrote in his head, that he comes back too often and he thinks everybody. Tony not only thinks because of his condition that everybody can store as many meaningless, trivial, and obscure factoids and happenings and callbacks and remembrances in their minds as he can in his. And he thinks they're hanging on every bit of it because he's telling these compelling stories to himself. And when you watch them in front of you, they come out as gibberish because you don't have the same luxury that Tony did of thinking it up and understanding it.
Well, celebrating 6 years of Tony Khan the Booker, AEW Full Gear in Newark, New Jersey, we shall return momentarily with some audio from Tony Khan, TK himself, at the Full Gear Media Scrum.